Hark the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 156, Wrenglion the Quaggoth Fisherman. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Bryce of Big Flying Lizard's table in the Levitating Platter. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best, unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. I've got an amazing guest for you this month here of November, but before we get to my mystery contestant, you know I have to do it. I have to leave you in suspense with the ad read. This podcast is brought to you by Plus One EXP and their brand new RPG Zine Club. It's a golden age of indie and small press RPGs. For the last several years, Plus One has made it our mission to help new indie creators and small press imprints get their products onto tables worldwide. Our highest goal is to create more sustainable and equitable pathways to getting games made and played. Now we want to take on our most ambitious project yet with RPG Zine Club. What is RPG Zine Club? It is a monthly membership subscription service featuring fresh zines from emerging and expanding creators across the globe. It's our way of inviting GMs, players, and zine lovers everywhere to invest more intentionally in the creative community. It's crowdsourced support without crowdfunding. Now, what are some of the features you have to look forward to when you join the RPG Zine Club? Well, you've got monthly releases with 2 20 to 44 page saddle stitch zines. Take your pick from story zines, adventure zines, or get both kinds. You can get print and digital or digital only of your favorite titles. Join the Clubhouse Discord. It's a section of our online community for club members to discuss and play new titles. Get the best prices guaranteed. You can select your frequency of how often you'd like titles, and you can get what you want and only get what you want. If you miss a month, there's no worries there. You can add recent titles to your month's order and get an annual surprise each February after your first anniversary. Get access to special content, including interviews, how to play videos, and special content for Zine Club titles. Do you like free pizza? Fill out one of the RPG Zine Club passports and redeem it for free pizza at events. You're going to get to encounter new and known designers. We source the best voices from across the RPG design community. We curate zines based on community interest and feedback to help you discover your new favorite creators. We are DIE focused. Plus One is committed to champion diversity, inclusion, and equity in our projects. Creators with diverse experiences make our community better. Zine Club prioritizes creating equity for all of our creators. And it's more than a purchase. Your subscriptions will let us invest more heavily in our print partners and provide them with potentially life-changing support by consolidating scores or hundreds of purchases as the club grows. So, if you want more details, please be sure to go to the website rpgzine.club, and this all can be found also by going to the website plus1exp.com. On that website, if you're making a purchase for a beard balm, a lip balm, beard RPG, or whatnot, and you're looking for a code to use at checkout, be sure to use the code Randolph, RANDOLPH, and save some coin on your purchase. Again, the website to get the discounts from me and provide a kickback to me to help support the podcast would be plus1exp.com with code Randolph. And be sure to go and check out the brand new rpgzine.club. All right. And so this is now the episode for November, and I'm once again joined by a fantastic guest. and I've teased it out long enough. So, hello, mystery contestant. Would you care to introduce yourself? Tell us who it is that you are and what is it that you do?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. My name is Bryce Wilson. I am the host of Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I am a big fanatic about dragons, and obviously that bleeds over into Dungeons and Dragons. I've been playing really ever since middle school, and I mean, I've just used that in my life. I write for fun. I just really fantasy is a big part of my life, and I hoped for it to continue to be a big part of my life.
Yes, and I was very gracious to be a recent guest on your podcast, where we met through Instagram. As you were alluding to the overlaps of our subject matter, and you asked me to become a guest on your show, and I did. And I was like, "Oh, what about this episode?" And you were like, "No, how about this one?" And then finally, I was like, "You know what? I love Pete's Dragon. That's a good movie from my childhood. Have you done Pete's Dragon?" And you were like, "No, I haven't actually." So I claimed that episode, and we had a very lovely time on your show discussing the 1977 film Pete's Dragon.
We did. I really enjoyed that conversation. I think we got a lot of really fun little snippets and clips from it. And I mean, as people can imagine, dragon media is sort of narrow, so it does make it a little bit difficult. It's funny because there's probably like 5 films that people really recognize, and then the rest are like, what are you talking about? Is that even a thing? So I appreciate being patient with me while we got that. And I think, as I said, we made magic over there happen.
That's true, yeah. All those ones that I named, I'll be excited to see those episodes and then finally be able to join in the conversation to be like, this is what I thought of this movie, or, oh, interesting point you raise about that show. So
maybe we just have like a WWE style where like, and in the corner, Kurt comes in with the chair comment.
Whoa. Yeah, well, I mean, if you ever need someone to fly in from the ropes, I suppose, I could do that on the Big Flying Lizard podcast.
Hey, appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, this podcast, we're all about the Dungeons and the Dragons and such. And so I think it goes without saying, this next question being fairly easy. Do you currently, or have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons before?
Yes, I have played Dungeons and Dragons like I alluded to before. Ever since, really, I think it was 6th grade I started playing. It was Pathfinder, and to this day, Pathfinder will always have a special place in my heart just due to the level of customization that you can really create with your characters. And though it's very much a good time. I do not recommend it for brand new players. I think that 5e is really one of the best to start new players with D&D, and that's where I've been able to convert a lot of my friends playing 5e. I'm currently a DM of a campaign of Eberron, and I'm a big fan of just the sandbox campaigns. I know some people really like to have the railroads and have the quests. For me, I'm passionate about creating a story with everybody and really just seeing where the story takes us. I had very much a loose idea of where the story was going beforehand. And now I'm like, I don't even recognize it, but I'm all for it. And I'm furiously scribbling away, trying to come up with good plot points for my players.
Well, I was going to say, with a podcast name like, the Big Flying Lizard podcast, surely the main villains or NPC figures of your sandbox game probably are dragons, unless I'm mistaken, and you actually went against type and you were like, nope, this is a world where no dragons exist, actually.
Well, Kurt, you're going to get some insider information. There might be a Quaddle that is a Jesus-like figure popping up in my campaign. So,
Ooh. Well, there we go. Yes, I've had an opportunity to deploy at least one of those in a game I'm running, so that player may not know, but that's all for me to know and to smile and wink, to give myself a wink in the mirror, I suppose. Okay, cool. I know for me, I started in 4th edition, so I know you were saying like, you started on Pathfinder. That may not be the best one to start with, and 5e is really good. And I agree, 5e is a pretty good one to bring people in. But you know what? There is something magical, at least for me in my heart, of capturing the spirit of a heroic fantasy with fourth edition, being such a different, swing and pace of the game for newcomers. So me and my college years, 4E is where it started. And then naturally I moved to 5E and I was like, okay, no, I do like 5E, but I do have a nostalgia for 4E, and I am very curious to see how Draw Steel comes out from MCDM Productions, which I just got a notification in my email the other day at the time of this recording that my final charge happened. So I'm probably set to be receiving those books here soon. So hopefully I'll get to promote those on social media, maybe eventually find someone to run a game of Draw Steel with.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That's really, so I don't know about you, Kurt, but not to derail or anything, but how many different TTRPGs have you played? Like, I've done several. I've done the Star Wars, I've done the Lord of the Rings version. My buddy really wanted me to get into Call for Cthulhu, but I've played a variety just because one of my good friends, Colby Ford, he is a passionate GM of just multiple games and wants to experience all the different ones. And honestly, he got bored of 5e. If you can, that might be sacrilegious for me to say, but so I mean, I know you said 4, and you also obviously 5e, but how many different of these ones have you done? If you don't mind me
That's a
asking.
great question. I mean, I know there have been like one shots here or there. I've dabbled like for a couple of games, like in Pathfinder, both I guess it would be considered 1E and 2E versions. I've also done, back in college, I think there was a guy that was experimenting with a game system and we had a friend of ours try that out for a session. Um, and when I went to Dallas Fan Expo, I got an opportunity to sit in with the Fallout TTRPG after spending probably a good long while kit bashing, editing the rules for 5e to basically homebrew my own version of a Fallout TTRPG. And then Modifius came along and made like the Fallout TTRPG. And I was like, oh, this system makes more sense than what I was trying to cobble together. So that was really cool to get to play that one, though I haven't, had an opportunity to play more of that. And of course, I have a number of other games I've collected along the way, especially from my aforementioned sponsor Plus One EXP, as well as other games that I've gotten from a friend of the podcast, Alexi Sargent, who runs the Cloven Pine Games developer, and he's made a number of ones, including like the Great Soul Train Robbery, Autumn Triduum, Tales of the Knights Aspirant, I believe is the new one he's working on. So yeah, there's a small number of other games that I've played, but I do recognize and promote and echo the sentiments of other people in the hobby that are like, if we want to have good health in our gaming attitudes and design opinions and stuff like that, then we, just like we all need to eat our fruits and vegetables, even if we complain about our fruits and vegetables, we need a good gaming diet. So, get your granola, get your crunch, get your, loosey goosey applesauce and all that good stuff. Mix it all up, and you'll do pretty. Your gut will thank you for a better balanced diet.
And we can always return back to pizza, that good old juicy pizza of 5e. It's always ready.
That's true. Very true. Yeah. The food analogy works unless you somehow develop a food allergy or your doctor tells you you're not allowed to eat this thing anymore. Then you're just like, all right, well, I guess I'm not allowed anymore.
Absolutely. Sorry. I was curious about that. That was something I meant to ask last time, but
yeah,
sorry.
no, it's a perfectly good question. And I think it also segues beautifully, sort of into the namesake questions of the podcast here in the personal interview section. So, we like to know about sidekicks. We like to know about side quests. So the first of these, who happens to be your favorite NPC or sidekick character, whether they be from an RPG, a video game, movie, film, television, literature, etc.? And why is this character your favorite sidekick or NPC?
So, funny thing, I really wanted to lean into answering who's my favorite sidekick because, truth be told, I am not a big fan of just the traditional Batman and Robin sidekick figure. I always feel like they're very whiny or just like too much of a lickspittle for the hero. And to me, that's always been just a little unattractive, you might say, for a particular thing. So, but at the
Okay.
same time, I didn't want to be like just listing some sort of NPC. So I really thought about it, and I'm gonna say I came down on my favorite sidekick. I think I'd have to say, and it's a little bit of a stretch, so bear with me, is Kuma from One Piece. Those I don't know how
Oh.
familiar you are with One Piece or not.
One Piece is the pirate show that has 1,000 episodes. That's the claim to fame that I know of. And I did have an opportunity to meet a gentleman at Dallas Fan Expo, Broadway star, who is a guest or a voice. He voiced a character on One Piece.
Oh, awesome.
He used to play the genie on Broadway, and then he went on to be in One Piece. So tell us more about your favorite character from One Piece, while I don't mind me, the man behind the curtain, trying to find the answer so I can name drop this awesome individual.
So, for those of you that are watching One Piece and are not caught up, spoiler alerts, light spoilers, I guess I should say, but Kuma is considered to be the right hand of the Revolutionary Army. So, the main guy who's in charge is this mysterious figure who's the father of the main character. And then there's Kuma, who's sort of his one, like a spy, but also just his big, beefy barbarian. And he goes in, and everything he's doing, he's fighting for. First, it was his one true love that he never got to marry, but then it became his daughter when his one true love died. And he's just one of the most selfless characters who has a tragic, tragic backstory. And I just love crying, apparently. I love characters that have those just deeply sad backstories, because when they succeed, it just gives those feelings of success so much more weight to it. I mean, I like the darker shows that are out there that have dark stories, because I mean, my philosophy is the darker the night, the lighter the morning, you might say. So, and
Yeah.
Kuma, I feel like, is the very definition of that, where he has so much going on that like he has every right to become a villain, or just every right to give up, but he perseveres, and he's able to, spoiler alert again, save those that he loves. So,
We do like a good redemption arc for sure.
oh, for sure.
And and thank you for allowing me that time to look up the name of the gentleman that I met at Dallas Fan Expo and sat in at his panel. Major Attaway is the name of the voice actor, and you might recognize him from One Piece as the voice of Queen Uroge, or it looks like Urouge, and then also additional voices. So yeah, I've had an opportunity to meet Major Attaway at the Dallas Fan Expo here. Super nice, charismatic, wonderful gentleman. And for all you musical theater nerds out there, and choir kids like me, like I was growing up, was stunned to hear that, like, oh yeah, I was the genie on Aladdin on Broadway in New York City. So
Well, that's wild. I mean, that's
wild.
really awesome.
Yeah. And Major Attaway, if you're listening here or on Instagrams or wherever, because I'm, following you and all that, love to have you on the podcast. So no big deal, but I'm sure you would stun us all with your luxuriously smooth sounding voice. There we go. Yeah. not too proud to beg. Like the Temptations once sang in the fables of old. And then to go to the flip side of the coin of the namesake of this show, what happens to be your favorite side quest or B plot element? Again, same criteria of like RPG, video game, movie, film, television, literature, history, etc. And why is this your favorite side quest or your favorite B plot element?
So this particular side quest, I think, more just shows how great of a game it actually is, because this side quest is just such a insane side quest you have to go on, and there's so many levels to it. And by the time you actually complete it, you're like, wait, this is not even remotely a part of the main quest. And I'm obviously alluding to Skyrim. Skyrim is one of my favorite games of all time. And my favorite side quest is the assassination of the emperor. Like, it's a whole thing that you having to go down, and it's just like a level of like people fighting for their liberation and trying to take down just this evil dictator who's taken over their lands. And I mean, like I said, it's as good of a story that could have been its own game, but it's literally a side quest that you can choose to go on to. And you can also just completely ignore it if you so choose. So for me, the fact that it's such a big side quest, again, like I love the side quest itself, but I also think it just supports the game of Skyrim so well that that's just such a major side quest to go on. And it's not even mainstream.
Right. I mean, talk about a franchise and talk about just a stellar title that, again, came out when I was in college. So I remember friends of mine disappearing for weeks on end playing this game. And surprisingly, I went for the other Bethesda titles. So I went more Fallout instead of Skyrim. But my wife loves the Skyrims and stuff. And I know Oblivion Remastered just came out, so everyone's been loving that. And I know recently in the time of this recording, I know one of the major developers or directors or writers or a very important figure to the history of the Elder Scrolls community has recently passed away. So certainly want to offer our condolences for him and for the fans that love this game. And again, I've never played any of them, but seen people do clips or gaming things. It almost reminds me of, I guess, the thing I've seen. Doesn't Oblivion open up with you're like the emperor or someone comes to you in your jail cell and like helps you get out, but then gets murdered? And because the emperor's voiced by Patrick Stewart, and he's the story goes he was given like a novel to memorize like for his character motivation and backstory, and yet he's only in the game for like the very first tutorial mission, and then he gets killed.
I think that just speaks to how great the game is, though. Like the fact that even just a little person, like not a little person, but just a little snippet of a character has such a big impact. And it is sort of ironic because I recently did just start playing the remastered version, and I was laughing at the fact because I'm like, oh, my favorite side quest in the other game I played, I'm trying to hunt this guy down, or I think it's his son or his grand. I don't know how many years. Or who knows, maybe my character jumped games and is the one.
And there we go. Perfect. Yes, the Skyrim, the game that keeps on giving, which now with Baldur's Gate 3, I mean, I'm sure people are like, well, they're not gonna Larian's not gonna add any more stuff to it, but as a time capsule of a game, it's like people will probably be still rolling up new characters for Baldur's Gate 3 just as much as they do for Skyrim or Oblivion Remastered.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if they do what Elden Ring does and just keep dropping like DLC expansion packs that you can buy and add on to the game.
Well, I don't think Larian will, but I do think the modding community will probably just continue to explode and offer new things, like including rumors I've seen of like, some modding team is trying to basically recreate like a version of Strahd and Barovia as like a side mission or something like that. So no telling, what exactly the modding community will come up with. I mean, if they can come out with like Fallout London and modders making like a whole Fallout game based in the UK. So, modders get it done. That's for sure.
They get it done, and they're dedicated to making sure I never see the light of day ever.
Right. They keep us playing our old games that we love.
Gotta respect it.
Gotta boot my game up again. Let me blow the dust off of it and get ready for a new version. Yep. Perfect. And then the way that we round out the personal interview section, Bryce, what are you passionate about and why?
Again, I really thought about this for a while because I felt like, oh, I could be basic and say I love dragons. I'm obsessed with dragons. But again, though, I want to give a little more. And something I think that you and I can both relate with, just especially, and really anyone who is involved with games like Dungeons and Dragons, is I am obsessed and just passionate about lore. Whenever I'm watching a show or reading a book, my favorite snippets, my favorite episodes are when you just really start digging deep and learning just the history of everything going on. There's several of my favorite shows. Like, it's not even the actual storyline, but just finding out things that happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago and just really seeing why the things are the way they are, or just getting that origin story, you might say. And it doesn't even have to relate to games and to books. I think that I've always been really interested in history. I considered getting a history major in college. Then I realized that I would only be able to teach history with that. But I still was just obsessed with history. And I really just view history as real life lore that you get to just go through and dig up. And I mean, it's sometimes it's so fascinating, and sure, sometimes it's boring, but there's always, I'm the type of person who will go in, try to find a history podcast or try to find just a good story that's like a narrative version of something that's happened, and just start nerding out on what's going on. So I'd have to say that lore in general, just as a subject, is something that I'm passionate about, and learning as much of it as I can.
Yeah, no, I think it is good. I've never watched the show. I've just seen clips, and I've seen Cinema Therapy do an episode on Ted Lasso and stuff like that. But I think there's something that Jason Sudeikis's character says about like being curious and being interesting and stuff like that. So it's like I think that's how we grow as people. You know, the great saint Irenaeus talking about like God is a human being fully alive. So I think it's like, yeah, when we're curious, when we're passionate about things, whether it's great things, even in the small things. I think being passionate about the small things and having like the particular details. So it's like, you go on Instagram and you see these people that are passionate about like, oh, I'm miniature painting. And it maybe not even miniature painting for like Warhammer and stuff like that, which everyone would love, but it's like you might see someone that's like, oh, I've been doing like model trains since I was a kid in the 1950s. And I meticulously handcraft paint to make it look like the trains of my youth back then. And you see these like Christmas villages, or just people being passionate about like, oh, I'm gonna go through this old sandwich book and I'm gonna make and recreate all these episodes of histories through sandwiches. There's all kinds of the creativity of the human spirit and what we will find to be passionate about, and being able to see that through history. Talking about like different things that people enjoy doing, of like, oh, we used to do ice cream socials, or when I was a kid we used to go to the roller rink, and that was the cool thing to do. And nowadays it's just like everyone's glued to their technologies and listening to their podcasts on YouTubes and their podcast apps of choice, which we appreciate. We love that you're listening to us on YouTube and your podcast app player of choice. But, there's a whole world outside your bedroom. You should go check it out. Hopefully, when it's not blisteringly hot outside, make sure you wear sunscreen and a hat. My wife tells me to do that all the time. So, general life advice, listen to your wife. She generally knows more than what you know. So, yeah, stay hydrated, get curious about the world, all that good stuff.
Drink electrolytes.
Electrolytes, Brondo. It's what plants crave, right?
Exactly.
Even though there's no dragons in Idiocracy that I'm aware of.
Hey, there might be one in the background. We can see. Hey,
if we zoom in over here, we can see one image of a dragon. Therefore, it qualifies for the Big Flying Lizards podcast.
Terry Crews gives off big dragon energy in that movie.
And on that note, I think it's time for us to head into some NPC creation. And NPC creation is brought to you by you, our podcast audience, and our patrons from Patreon. So now's the time in the show where we give a shout out to our comfortable patrons and above with a loud hurrah. So to you, my good buddy Anson Jablinski, as well as good old mom and dad, we say cheers. I am pounding away on a Mountain Dew, Baja Blast, Tropical Lime. They say energy drinks are the way to keep you energized and going through all the day. You drink 2 cans of this and you won't go to sleep until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I guarantee it. Anyway, that tangent aside, all these folks that I named, they're not only comfortable patrons, they're wealthy patrons, which means they get to introduce an element of chance to our random tables that we have here at NPC Creation, and we might get to hear some of their responses that they've provided today. So if you want to learn more about all the various tiers of patronage that we have to offer, here at the Levitating Platter, you should go to the patreon.com/sidekicks and side quests, check out the show notes below, or go to the podcast website. Those are all the places that you want to go, find out all the details, help us to grow and expand our operations at the Levitating Platter in this demi-plane and worlds beyond. And Ko-fi, all that good stuff. Bada bing, bada boom. All right. So now is the part of the show where we get to make up a character. We didn't explicitly discuss this before we started hitting record on all the microphones and stuff, but are you wanting to randomize an NPC today, or do you have something pre-prepared and we're just going to kind of discover who the character is through the questions?
Hey, Kurt, I think it'd be a lot of fun to randomize it. I've seen a lot of people have a lot of fun doing that randomization, and I think that's the way to go.
Perfect. Okay, well, if you've got your standard array of dice at the ready, whether they're physical or virtual, or I guess they could be mental. You would just have to tell me a number, and then I would just look at the list and see what it is. But regardless, the first question we have to ask here in NPC creation is, what's going to be the name of our character? And let's roll a d20 and see what we get.
All righty. Natural 1.
Natural 1. All right. We're off to a strong start as fellow DMs. All right. So this answer was provided to us by previous guest Ben Martin Mooney. Wrenglion, which is spelled Wrenglion, and it's pronounced Wrenglion.
Wrenglion. Perfect.
Indeed. All right, and then the next question we have here, what is the ancestry of our character? This is where it could certainly swing wild with a D100 or a 2D10 roll to figure out what is the ancestry of Wrenglion.
Let's go. I am so... we got a 62.
62 as I scroll through the list. Okay, Quaggoth.
A Quaggoth? I'm not even sure what that is.
So Quaggoths they're described as like the bear-like bipedal creatures of the Underdark. You know, they were unfortunately enslaved by the Drow or the Mind Flayers or the Dwargar, depending on who you ask. And so, yeah, they are these dudes who live in the Underdark. We've had a couple of Quaggoths on the podcast. So, yeah, Wrenglion is a Quaggoth. Okay, perfect. All right.
I'm digging it. I saw some pictures.
There we go. Okay. And then the next thing we roll for is the job or role in society that Wrenglion would have. This gets to be just a regular D10 roll.
Okay, let's go. That is a 9.
9. Okay. Your answer was provided to us by previous guest, VTuber Mandy Quinn, small scale fisherman.
I love it.
Okay. And then let's see the final dice roll we get to do before we take a small pause on said dice rolling. We need to figure out the age range of the characters. So to determine this randomly, we roll a D8.
A D8. Alrighty. That's a 5.
Midlife. Middle-aged. So we have a middle-aged Quaggoth named Wrenglion that's a small-scale fisher. And with all these details in mind, when you hear such descriptors given, describe the physical appearance of our fair Wrenglion.
So when I think of Wrenglion, I think of a Quaggoth who knows what he is, but he also is sort of trying to fit in best he can. He just wants to live a simple life. He wants to, so he probably has some old overalls that he wears, even though he doesn't need to.
Okay.
He sounds like a bowler cap sort of guy. He wants to be wearing a bowler cap.
Okay.
And, you know, I think that he's really run of the mill. I don't think he really stands out in any other way other than he likes his bowler cap, and he likes his overalls.
Interesting. And, I did pull up the Forgotten Realms wiki to at least give us what on paper it says, kind of the lore of Quaggoths are. But of course, on this podcast and hopefully any other Dungeons and Dragons podcast you listen to, it should go without saying that, kind of like from Pirates of the Caribbean, these are kind of more like guidelines than actual rules. And so, free to take or borrow or amend or change or put in or leave out of your campaigns. But according to the deets for a 5e Quaggoth, it does say that they are, their most common language being Undercommon, but, we can always change some of those things. And their favorite terrain being the Underdark. So are we imagining that Wrenglion is this small-scale fisherman, but in the Underdark? Or did he make his way up to the surface and he's having to adjust to life on the surface as a small-scale fisherman?
What I sort of imagine, and I think that it makes only the most sense, is he's not somebody who actually wants to still leave the Underdark, but he understands to live the simple life that he wants. He has to be in that sort of in between. So he makes it to some of those like lakes that are in the mountains that you can sort of do hikes into, but he doesn't actually leave the mountainscape itself, but he's coming at least from under the crust.
Okay. So he's emerged from the Underdark to just the regular mountainous subterranean
Yeah,
terrain.
exact. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Right. So he's left the Underdark. He's joined Fraggle Rock.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh, well, and you said, like the dwarves in the mountains and the big lakes in the mountains. I'm just wondering, is what sort of community, does he find himself in? If he's wearing a bowler hat and overalls and he's this fisherman, is he living and working like in a more heavily dwarvish sort of a culture and society? Or is it like a mixed mountain subterranean community there? Or I don't know, just kind of curious, like what you imagine the environment we would find him in. Because, could obviously give us a lore explanation of how he knows more languages than just Undercommon.
What I imagine is that he sort of, I mean, again, he's just a small scale fisherman. He's his profession allows him to eat, so even if people don't want to work with him, he doesn't necessarily have to worry about it. So I imagine that he sort of keeps to himself, sort of a hermit outside of town. Like if dwarves are feeling charitable enough to work with them, they'll be willing to work with him. But I also imagine that they still like, oh, he's a little bit of an odd one. Like he's good, but we still don't trust him. We're just waiting for him to snap one of these days. And he maybe wears that bowler cap and those overalls just to let the dwarves feel more at ease than anything else.
I was gonna say with an ancestry name like Quaggoth and your description of him being kind of more like a loner or someone that's like on the outside or not readily or fully accepted into the community, just because it was the letter Q being on my brain and thinking of the movie Jaws. Do you imagine that Wrenglion is kind of like a Quint sort of a character from Jaws? He's just kind of like the I know the sharks out in the water. It's like I know the best fishing spots on this lake. And then the dwarves all kind of look at this Quaggoth like, yeah, that Wrenglion, he's an odd fellow. I don't know, but I guess if you're gonna, go fishing or you're going to, you need a boat or you're on the hunt for some sort of giant cave shark that's been terrorizing all the interior fishing or something like that, then yeah, Wrenglion's your man. He'll go on that crazy mission to certain doom.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm envisioning. Also, I'm getting a little bit of like Logan in the Wolverine origin story where he's like a little bit like he's still a big guy. He's still a beast. Like you
Oh
don't
yeah.
compare. So at the same time, he's a little crazy and he's willing to interact, but people also know like, hey, he could snap at any moment. That the
Right.
bowler cap can only protect you for so long.
It does say that typically their diet's supposed to be carnivorous, so subsisting on fish is a good call. And an average height for a Quaggoth is going to be for a male is going to be anywhere between 6 and 7 feet, 250 pounds at the probably average weight. So I mean, yeah, a good. He's at least 2 dwarves tall. So I mean, he stands above everyone else in this community.
Oh yes, literally.
All right. As we're discovering kind of these aspects of the character and the community they live and the way that they present and physically appear for role playing purposes as dungeon masters, it kind of helps us to know like if we're gonna present Wrenglion in our game, what 3 adjectives would best describe Wrenglion as a character, so that way you can be able to role play them a little more easily.
I definitely went the first time we even came up. I think stubborn. Like he does what he wants to do, and he's no one really can change his mind but his own. I get the sense that he's a little. I don't. I'll say he's slow. He's slow and stubborn, but at the same time, he's content. I don't know if that's like he's not trying to get. He's true neutral.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it says default assumed alignment being chaotic neutral, but yeah, true neutral. Yeah, he's chilled out a bit now that he's gotten out of his frantic, dangerous Underdark environment. He can actually breathe and not have panic attacks or fears of being subjugated by some other militaristic evil faction in the Underdark or something like that. He could just be himself.
Yeah, and he's not huffing those lava fumes over there, those volcanic fumes down under in the Underdark.
Yeah, true. Okay, all right, so slow, stubborn, and content. Sounds like a pretty good salt of the, well, I guess if it's a freshwater lake, there is no salt. He's a true blue crystal lake fisherman here in the mountain. So probably maybe some sort of fisherman saying with the dwarves is probably what they say. It's like, he stands head tall over many of us, but you know what? You can't deny that he knows these waters and he's a part of them. So yeah, I like it. All right, good old Wrenglion. And now we get to go back to some dice rolling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got more dice to roll and more things to discover. So we like all of our NPCs to have something cool on their person. So what's going to be a valuable item, piece of lore, secret, or ideal or concept that Wrenglion would ascribe to? We roll the D4 first for the category and then a D6 for the particular thing.
Alrighty. That is a 3.
Ooh, this is going to be a secret that Wrenglion has. Okay, and what's the D6? What secret is he holding?
I am excited for this. Wrenglion has another one.
Another one. All right. Well, your answer was provided to us by our Patreon supporter, our good friend Goblin Katie, aka Katie Downey. The secret that Wrenglion is harboring. All right. I have to pull my glasses out to read this. I already have glasses to wear. It's just I gotta focus up. All right, Wrenglion. Your entire village was wiped out when you and your family were controlled by illithids and given the command to kill everyone. You have carried this burden in silence, but have sworn an oath to destroy those responsible in hopes it will clear your conscience.
Okay.
So does that fit in for our Wrenglion? Like how does that make sense? If he's this small scale fisherman, doesn't sound like he's on his way to go fight back against the illithids, the mind flayers.
So the funny you say that, but I almost feel like it fits perfectly because he was controlled to be like this murderous creature before, and he decided to run away from that. That was the blood of his youth, you might say, and he's now middle-aged, and though he has to do this, it's sort of one of those things where he doesn't really have a taste for blood, so knows he has to sort of do it eventually, but he's like, let me experience this peace until I have to go and do this bloody work at some point.
Just a quick question here to the Google machines, because being in the Underdark, mind flayers and illithids, interchangeable terms. But let's see here. I just was asking, trying to see, do mind flayers conquer Quaggoths? I mean, because normally you associate Quaggoths, unfortunately, being subjugated by, I believe it's the Drow. But according to this quick summary here, it does say, yes, mind flayers, also known as illithids, often conquer and enslave Quaggoths. Here's why. Psionic powers. Mind flayers possess blah, 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 blah. They use their powers to dominate Quaggoths and make them their thralls. Need for thralls. Mind flayers require other creatures to serve as slaves, fodder, and sometimes even food. Quaggoths, being physically strong and relatively common in the Underdark, make suitable candidates for these roles. And Quaggoth vulnerability, they're fierce and dangerous hunters. They're frequently prey for other Underdark creatures, including mind flayers and drow. Their society, particularly those who follow the beast, can be susceptible to manipulation, especially by those with magic or powerful mental abilities. Drow enmity. Drow another powerful Underdark race, often enslave Quaggoths and often incite them against other surface elves, further pushing them towards servitude or conflict. In essence, Mind Flayers exploit the Quaggoths' physical prowess and relatively simple society to add them to their vast armies of thralls and expand their dominion in the Underdark. So, again, that's lore as written and summarized here by the machine. So you think it goes in line that his particular community was assumed or enthralled by this colony of mind flayers, and yet he was the only one that managed to escape and make his way closer to the surface.
Yeah, I think it sort of makes sense. I don't know. I mean, maybe we discuss. Maybe there's an instance that did cause him to break free. Maybe he had to kill one of his own family members. Maybe he was an overseer over his people and it just allowed him to break free for a split second, and he used that to just escape.
Wow. Okay, yeah, because I don't know if many Quaggoths are actually being fed little mind flayer tadpoles to be ceramorphized into other mind flayers. Because it seems like they'd be good muscle, like mind control. It's like you lumbering thing, do manual labor and build all my stuff and be my guards to bully the other things around. So yeah, okay. Yeah, so he had to do this dark thing, and then he managed to escape and run. So also seems like he'd be a good NPC to be like oh, you don't know where the Mind Flayer colony is? I'm kind of reticent to give you this information, but I'll mark it on your map as to where the Mind Flayer colony is.
Oh, for sure. And he could, even depending on how well you roll with them, be willing to be your guide down to there, because you have to eventually follow through with that quest of his.
Yeah, true. Yeah, if he can somehow fulfill his oath that he's sworn in order to clear his conscience with getting revenge on all these mind flayers. So if you're itching for some NPC randomly to be able to introduce a whole mind flayer subplot to your campaign, well, here's your NPC to do it. I mean, it's a juicy secret, and maybe that's what you might be tempted to offer as the side quest, because all of our NPCs have to have their little gold exclamation points over their head to be able to offer a side quest. You might be, well reasoned to have that be the side quest, but maybe it is a secret, so maybe he's not going to let that one out until a couple of other interactions to finally come clean about that. So if you want to roll for side quest that maybe perhaps Wrenglion is willing to give to the player characters or offer up, let's see perhaps maybe what kind of side quest he'd be willing to offer.
All right. And which die was that again? Apologize.
The last one, the D12.
The D12. And that's a 12.
And that's a 12. Okay. Let's see if this makes sense. Let's see. It's a sewer cleanup. This is given to us by our good friend Frederick from Hell's Enemy, the metal band. Let's see. It's a sewer cleanup quest, but it's full of monsters that are exotic and have no business being there. Since he's a small-scale fisherman, I don't see him maybe offering up really a sewer side quest unless it did something to affect the fish or something like that. Is that plausible, or do you want to re-roll the D12 and maybe see if there's a different one that maybe speaks more relevantly?
I'm open to it, but I could also make the argument like the dwarves have the sewer system sort of pouring into his lake, and there's some just monsters that are invasive species that are really affecting his fish. And like I mentioned earlier, he probably doesn't get that much trade with the dwarves because they are just so distrustful. And if he wants to he probably would offer the party just like, hey, go take care of these beasts for me, and I might have something worth trading for it, sort of situation.
Okay. So interesting bit of world building and lore as well, being like, oh, the dwarves of this mountain, they built a great city here. It's by the lake, and dwarves like to drink and and live their lives and all that stuff, and they make garbage and refuse and trash. But unfortunately, it's all draining into the lake, which Wrenglion depends upon in order to fish. And so, really, the dwarves are just hurting themselves by not, doing better water treatment stuff here for themselves. But okay, sewer cleanup quest full of monsters. And interestingly enough, they are exotic and have no business being there. An interesting thing we could tie into his secret, maybe it's freaking him out as well, because it's starting to be like, those are intellect devourers that are in the sewer. Like, there are other, like, there's a mind witness in there. There's these creatures that have been cranium rats, all experimented upon by the mind flayers, and they're being slowly introduced up into the sewers as a way for them to make their first covert strike to try and lay siege to and take claim over this dwarven city. But the dwarves are too busy in their halls drinking and mining and making merry and ignoring the threat looming beneath them.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it. Yeah. So what seems like a simple sewer cleanup quest, you're finding more and more of these monsters that are aberrations, tinkered and messed and experimented on by the mind flayers. And then, yeah, okay, so we get to the end of the quest. The party reports back to Wrenglion, and they let him know, like, hey, we cleaned up the sewers, and they report back on everything. How is Wrenglion going to award the party? How is he going to deem their, or maybe not deem, but how is he going to present them with the reward of their quest?
Oh, cause I feel like he'd need to be coaxed for like the juicy bits on where the Illithid are, but I feel like the Illithid wouldn't necessarily be as interested maybe in some thing that he would consider as treasure, whether that is just a rare just a particular rare earth material or a rare exposit that he didn't let the Illithid know, and he could tell the party down like, hey, this is where you can get, it's a platinum mine or some sort of thing that his village was mining before they were conquered and taken over by the Illithid. And that sort of
Oh,
sends them down into the Underdark where they could learn about the Illithid down there and sort of tying together. I don't know about you, Kirk, but I am a big fan of having these simple quests available for my party that turn into just game changer quests down the
oh
road.
yeah, for sure. It's like, yeah, you're in Act 1 of the Dwarven City, and it's like your friends who have already maybe because you've run this campaign one other time or two, they're like, oh yeah, run that interesting fisherman. Yeah, you should totally go talk to him if you want to know how to really deal with the things that are coming up in Act 3. Like, you better go talk to him. Like, he's
Exactly.
gonna give you the juice that you need. Yeah, that's really fun. Okay, so something interesting that his community of Quaggoths were working on or mining or had access to before they were all enthralled by the mind flayers. Yeah, that could be like mithril, platinum, adamantine, any number of invented minerals or metallurgical alloys or whatnot. Yeah, you could have a lot of fun with that. It'd be interesting, yeah, interesting point of contention as well, I guess, with the dwarves, especially if you introduce like a whole mining faction and they're like, oh, we're looking for like, the next big thing. And then, one of the characters is mouthy in the tavern, and suddenly, like, the mining company is bearing down on the adventuring party because they're like, hey, we heard a rumor that where this like big pocket of this thing is. Where is it? And so then you've got like these capitalistic miners that are miners, miners, not capitalistic miners, children. It's a mining faction run by children.
Good clarification.
Just,
We need to.
yeah. They're dwarven children. They're much more mature than human children. So, they're sober. Their parents are just perpetually drunk. So they're the only ones that can be trusted with the business.
They're responsible.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, interesting twist that potentially you could put into play. Yeah, there's a lot of different angles that you could cover that for sure. So okay, so knowledge about like some sort of very valuable material that's down there in the Underdark that certainly this dwarven community would be interested in, or just the player characters being interested in.
Yeah, and I feel like he's sort of the person who just wants to stay out of the way of everyone, and since he is such a intimidating and not so typically friendly, nobody's going to go up and be like, hey, do you know where I can find some mithril down there? Sort of a situation. I felt like that's a good, he may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but he knows exactly what he needs to do and well, not what he needs to do, but he knows exactly where the treasure needs to be for the party to move along.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so that's the reward, but we also have to consider the opposite. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure? So, with my thinking, since this is directly affecting his business because of the pollution and all these creatures, it seems like it's going to move that plot forward as far as like, okay, if the players ignore this, suddenly there's more abominations and aberrations that are appearing in the dwarven city, and they're attacking random people, or people are starting to disappear and being dragged down below into the and deeper into the Underdark. And and then I don't know. Yeah, so it sounds like that happens, or maybe does Wrenglion get spooked and wants to flee because he starts hearing stories about like, oh yeah, brains walking around on legs, or evil looking rats, or an ooze that mimics and pretends to be people and tries to lure people into the sewers and such.
Yeah, and we could even say that maybe Wrenglion tries to take it on himself and go and do it. And I don't know if the intellect devourers sort of relate to the Illithid that, like, oh, one of your guys have escaped. And the Illithid being so proud that they are like, oh, we can't let that happen. And they just concentrate all of their firepower on that village area and sort of just zombie-esque Call of Duty zombie, just keep waves and waves of different of the ilk of the Illithid. And it's one of those things that you either tear it out at its roots at the beginning, or you're dealing with just constant waves of all sorts of Underdark creatures until
Ooh.
you're overwhelmed.
Yeah, no, doing like a horde mode siege of like, yeah, just waves of, you get minion stat blocks, and you're like, it's like the Black Plague. What is it? That Black Plague video game where it's just like the sea of rats, but it's all cranium rats that are like descending on the city, or it's like, little skittering intellect devourers, or again, a mind witness or two flying through the city. So it could potentially lead to this city being readily attacked and overtaken by the Mind Flayer colony. And so their empire grows. They claim another city. And now this starts to ripple out in your game world, because now it's like, oh, the Mind Flayers have declared war on the surface. And this was their first strike. This was the first city to fall. Like, what's the next one? Maybe your game master, dungeon master, needs a new exciting way to kick off the brand new campaign, and this gets to be like your prologue story before the actual campaign kicks off, or something like that.
Yeah. And it could also be just potentially, I mean, I'm when I'm a dungeon master, and my players will attest to this, I tend to be unforgiving in some ways. And this could be like potentially like a level 15 quest that you're get like, oh, you ignored the poor little fisherman. Well, tough luck, guys. Now you're dealing with this invasion. So it is like an end game rather, or I love the idea of it being a new game, but it could also potentially just be an end game for
Mhm.
of a campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, especially, if you ran this as I mean, you could introduce this certainly as, like, oh, this is our game of the week, and, here's our new city, and here's this interesting Quaggoth fisherman as a random NPC that, would probably raise a few questions, and your players would more than likely want to go talk to Wrenglion. But you could also probably set this as a one shot, and, explain that it's like the prologue one shot. And so, if these characters survive the onslaught in the city of overrun by the mind flayers and their army, that could be very cool and cinematic, as far as like, the bowels of the earth open up and pouring out are all these mind flayers and all this stuff that are starting to take over the city, and everyone's fleeing. And then when you introduce the new campaign, it's like, oh, I was one of the dwarven survivors, and I've been trying to warn everyone here on the surface of like what's coming, but they don't believe us, because, oh, you're just a dwarf that lives in the mountain. What do you know about the wider world and the problems that we're dealing with up here? So could be very fun.
Oh, I exactly.
All right, there we go. So those are your failure conditions for sure. And I mean, we've made our way through all the preliminary basic, I feel like, encapsulating questions to create an NPC, but we do have some optional questions if you think that Wrenglion deserves, more nuance and more depth as a character, or do you feel like he's pretty good and you're ready to move on to the next section?
I think he has everything he needs to be a good quest starter NPC.
All right, perfect. Well, with that determined, we're now going to head into a random encounter. This random encounter is brought to you by my sponsor, Zencastr. How do I use Zencastr? Well, that's the service that I'm using right now to be able to record my episodes of the podcast. It's what allows me to capture it all, put it into my editing machines on my new computer to get it processed and put forth onto the interwebs and podcast land for you all to enjoy. I was able to take part of this service, all thanks to my buddies Benjamin Huffman and Dane Fox McGraw over at the Dispel Magic podcast. And, if you were at this time in your life wondering what can I be doing? What sort of hobbies or things that I could be branching out to? Well, I'm here to talk to you today about Zencastr. It's so easy. It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen. Knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. You can sound your best. Have you ever wondered what you might sound like? Well, Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically works to remove those filler words in your recordings, and it makes those awkward pauses in conversation dip out as well. You can set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. It's all in one, so if you've thought about podcasting before and realize that you need a lot of different tools and services these days in order to do a podcast, well, I can assure you that those days are done. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SIDEKQPodcast, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Again, go to zencastr.com/pricing, use my code SIDEKQPodcast, get that 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. Thank you so much for listening to this ad and for supporting the sponsor. It helps to support the show. And without further ado, on with the podcast. All right, so now we're here in the random encounter section. So it's where we get to do the role play vignette scene with the character we've made today. So I think Bryce is going to do a fantastic job as this rather content, but also slow and also stubborn Quaggoth named Wrenglion. But the question becomes, who am I going to be in the scene? Am I going to be one of my adventuring characters that's going to get this side quest to go clear out the sewers? Am I one of these other dwarven lake fishermen that talks with Wrenglion? Maybe he's come into town into one of the many, many drinking halls of this place and is, resting after a day of perhaps not successful fishing. Or is it, Wrenglion escaping the Underdark in his past in a flashback sort of a thing? Or I don't know. What sort of scene are you interested in to showcase Wrenglion in?
Kurt, I think it's only fair that I turn this on you and say you have to roll a d4. And if it's a 1, it's the party. If it's 2, the dwarves. If it's 3, it's out running out. And a 4, you get to pick between the 3.
Okay, all right. So I will. I have my virtual dice roller that I'm going to pull up, and I'll make sure to show it to the screen so he can be the judge of my honesty of dice rolling. And so I click the D4, and it says a 1.
It's a 1.
So that means again that we're going to be doing the scene with the adventuring character. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So as you very graciously said, oh, I'm a listener of this podcast and I know a thing or two about it. So do you happen to have a preferred NPC adventurer that you would like to hear from with Wrenglion, or shall I go through the Rolodex? Because perhaps the episodes you've listened to, are older and not ones where we've had probably some updates to some of the NPCs of the roster.
Let's go through the roster one more time just to freshen it up.
Yeah, of course. We'll go through that roster. So we've got Duncan. He's the recklessly brave fighter, battle master per BG3 of the group. He's no task too small, no feat too daring sort of a guy. He is chaotic good on legs, and he just tumbles his way from one adventure to the next. We've got Sonia. She's the warrior woman. She started off as a barbarian, and then she found Axis, the Revenant Priest, and she became a paladin as well, who serves a god who wishes to redeem the undead. We have Korak. He's the lawful evil, arcane trickster, roguish dwarf. We've got Chrisley. She's the herbalist, botanist, wood elf druid from the Woad. And she was doing her adventures, and then she found another wandering prophet and priest of an ancient bygone civilization, and she now is a cleric of living memory as well as to being a druid. We have Orion. He is the astral elf, illusionist wizard from the astral sea. We also have Agape. She is the lilac-colored tiefling Sorlock, started off as a wild magic sorcerer, influenced by the Feywild, and then eventually made her own Archfey Warlock pact with her buddy that she incorrectly refers to as Prosperina, when her real name is Proserpina. And then we've also got Lifespell the Necromancer. He is our little old man forest gnome necromancer. He's gotten some upgrades, so he has a few more skeletons in tow. He's got Octavius, of course, his skeletal manservant, but he's also got Get Over Here, the Minotaur skeleton, who works as his pack mule, and he also has Slippin' Jimmy, the bugbear skeleton with the muscly arcane arm. So, like, one of his skeletal arms has been replaced with, like, an arcane arm. That's Lifespell. He's got that whole posse of skeletons rolling with him. And then we also have Emblem Mithril Shaper. She's a newbie greenhorn dwarvish bard. She's only been featured in one other episode thus far, so I like to just think that she's chilling in the Prickly Pete's pouring station. But if you want her to be in this adventure, you can. Or if one of those other characters was exciting, you could name them. Or if none of them sounded interesting, and by golly, they've all been on enough episodes to have such gravitas, but if none of them catch your fancy and you want, I don't know, a Dragonborn or a half-dragon or something like that, adventurer character, then we could make them too. Honor of Big Flying Lizard podcast.
Here's the thing. It's not that I don't like any of them. There's so many of them that I like. I feel like Duncan is the most appropriate for it, but I want to see where Lifespan takes this. I'm really curious on how he would go about this whole excursion.
Okay, you want to hear from Lifespell and crew?
Yes, Lifespell. I think Lifespell would be a fun little encounter during this whole side quest.
All right, where we last left our hero, Lifespell the Necromancer, and his skelly boys, his skeleton crew that he has with him, they were in the swamps up on the surface, and they met with a rather interesting turtle, blacksmith, and they were able to negotiate for some old weapons and such by taking care of Evelina's side quest, which was done. And Lifespell was happy to do it, of course. And through the series of that adventure, again, what's Lifespell's modus operandi? He wants a skeleton army. Well, where do you go to get the best skeletons? Well, obviously, you need dwarves. You need a lot of dwarves. You need a lot of dwarves who have a necropolis capital city built into the mountain, of course, which is where you would go. They drink in their many drinking halls to honor their sacred dead alongside their bones. Some of them even going through the ceremonial cleansing process after their death to have only the most revered warriors' skulls turned into sacred communal drinking vessels that only get busted out at the holy times of the year. So they claim. in this society where they drink, they fight, they party, and they live life hard to the fullest. And so the camera pans in, and we see Lifespell and his skeletons walking behind him. Of course, there has been some work done with Octavius, who does kind of look like a very cloaked up manservant, wearing very covering robes, and he has his top hat, and he's got his mask work and stuff like that. So he just kind of looks like a little sort of only unsettling sort of a butler manservant, but not too bad. The other ones are a little more lumbering, but thanks to Evelina and some other work, they're able to get some armor and some other stuff to kind of make our Minotaur skeleton and our Bugbear skeleton with his magical arm a little more presentable for polite society, we'll say. So the road from the outside into the mountain to head to this necropolis city, which Lifespell has just like diamonds in his eyes, the diamonds that he needs for all the resurrections of the skeletons to be able to use in his army. He'll have to see how he contends with their laws here of how they treat their dead, but he doesn't care about that now. He's walking alongside the road, which leads by this giant lake. And very interestingly, he sees another big fellow, and he's initially thinking like, oh, great, an easy snag, like a big undead that I can grab now. Oh, this one has fur on him. Oh, he's rather interesting. So he's puttering and muttering, and he goes, blah, 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 blah. You, you're not undead. No, who are you? Oh, yeah, yeah. So he's just muttering and being an old man, but he's startled. You see the other skeletons or the other figures lumbering with him stop behind him, but he looks at Wrenglion and sort of like bumps into him. But what scene is happening? What has Wrenglion been doing as Lifespell and crew have been approaching?
So Wrenglion he has all of his baits in front of him, and he's trying them all out, and none of them are working right now because of the monsters that are going there. So I imagine he's been at the lake for several hours, no fish in sight, no bites. So he's a little agitated, a little annoyed. But that's what he's really been doing, just trying to get some sort of bite right there. So when he hears somebody ask who he is, he's like, Wrenglion is my name.
Wrenglion, very good. This is a dwarvish necropolis, is it not? And you are not a dwarf. No, you're much bigger. Kind of like my guys. Here, and he points behind him. He says, "Get over here!" And then the Minotaur skeleton kind of walks forward a little bit, lumbering with like a big chest strapped to his back that's jangling with a bunch of like old rusted weapons. That Lifespell is all about the reduce, reuse, recycle philosophy of life, especially when it comes to bones and skeletons. So he's got all their weapons ready for his skeleton army. And then, of course, and then he says, "You, Slippin' Jimmy." And he says, and then the bugbear skeleton walks forward with his arcane arm. And he says, "And then, of course, my manservant, Octavius." And then Octavius will bow and lift of the top hat and quickly put back on his head. He said, "You have a fancy hat, too. Not many fisher bears wearing top hats when they fish, at least not on the surface."
You see him just put one of his hooks that he's been working with onto it, take another one off to switch over to his fishing line, which I like to imagine that his fishing line is regular size. So it just looks like he's big man, little fishing hook. But he's like, "You have lots of men."
"Yes, I'm in the process of building my own army, you see."
Fun.
Yes.
Would you be interested in hunting down some foul desecrates? Desecrotes? Desecrators. Yes, desecrators.
Interesting. So he'll do a history check, and maybe he does middle of the road. So as far as like what he could be referring to, and as far as like Wrenglion himself, because perhaps he hasn't encountered many Quaggoths before. So he's like, do you mean to tell me that there are some drow figures in this necropolis? I thought it was for dwarves. That doesn't make sense.
I mean, I imagine at the word of drought, you'd see him like tense and like start looking around like a little drow. Where?
Oh. But he starts looking around too as a confused old man because he thinks like now there's drow around. He's like, well, they have very good skeletons, very light and bendy, and they can do many acrobatic feats.
No. Big brains with legs.
Brains with legs.
Brains with legs. Desecrate fish.
Oh, the fish. Well, I have no need for fish. I mean, the skeletons on fish are all right. I mean, I suppose if I needed a skeletal navy of some type at some point, but no, not mermaids. And he starts rattling on about like, being an old man and just kind of like going off on a tangent. Maybe Octavius bumps him and that gets him out of his mode of thinking. And so he looks like he wants to like dress down Octavius, but then he realizes, that he's, talking to you and you're mentioning something about, oh, you said something. So brains. Well, I mean, that's sort of my wheelhouse. I mean, I prefer skeletons because they're a little more programmable, not as bitey as the undead flesh kind of some of my other colleagues who are so insistent on the superiority of flesh undead. But the bones tell no lies, I say.
Bones. Right.
Aye, bones. They make good fish hooks. Don't you know?
So,
I remember when I was a little boy at my forest gnome village, and yeah, we used to use bones for all kinds of things. Come to think of it, that's probably where I got my whole reasoning for wanting to be a necromancer. And then he kind of sits there as an old man and just stares off into space like he's caught lost in a daydream. And what does Wrenglion say to kind of get him back in the moment before he just starts kind of drooling and maybe slowly starting to nod off because like, oh, he hasn't had his nap yet today.
So out of one of his pockets on his overalls, he pulls out a small little bag and he just hands it to him. He's like, you take out brains. I tell you where to get more of this. And he just drops. And you can tell, that's some of the material from the mine that he previously worked with in another life.
Ooh, okay. So yeah, life spell gets snapped out of it. He looks at this bag, he examines it, he does some maybe he does an arcana check. He does really well. He's like, oh, interesting arcane properties of this. Very unique. And then he like does a little taste to his tongue. He's like, ooh, a little zingy there. And he's like experimenting. He's like, yes, for my army, it seems like it has components, maybe fulfills some things, but very wide range of it seems to hold an arcane charge. That could be very useful for my weaponry and my armor and components. Yes, Wrenglion, yes. Okay, so the brains in the sewers that are causing a ruckus for your fish, and if I get them, then, well, I guess brains don't really have skeletons, but anything I find I keep, right? Surely maybe the dwarves haven't found all their skeletons. Maybe they won't mind a few other skeletons from the sewers going missing. You think?
I just want my fish back.
Oh. No. So now he does like a old man of like, oh, I am a great academic, but I'm speaking to someone salt of the earth. And he's just like, oh, he'll never understand my grand ambitions. But he just says, all right. Okay, so just all right, get over here, Slip and Jimmy. Octavius, man up. Make sure you get get over here. Get over here. And see, like, bend down. And so he has the Minotaur skeleton kneel down, opens the chest with a flick of his wrist for some magic. And so he instructs the others to start arming themselves up. And he's like, all right, we have our task set before us. We're going to clear out some sewers, help this peasant man with his fish needs, and we'll find some skeletons, I'm surely, in this necropolis, if they are so precious with their religious laws. But we will do this task set before us, and we'll find more of this zingy mineral, and we will use it for our army. Yes. And so, so someone needs to dust in here. It's too much fumes. Do they always run the mines? It's a little bit much. Do you know the schedule where I can go and get breakfast? It's getting to be several hours past midday. I'm starting to get tired. I'm wondering if it's maybe I need to turn in early. Now he's being more of an old man.
And Wrenglion would just point one of his like long fingers off to the side, like, follow the path. And it almost looks like a bear trail that you get the sense that he just goes back and forth whenever he catches stuff. It's just his path that he's been using for years. It's not even like an official road.
All right, very well. Okay, well, we will go this way. Thank you, peasant fishermen. Wrenglion, we will see to this task, and I think I'll go have my din-dins, and Octavius, you can tuck me into bed, and we'll get fresh after I've had my nap or my sleep. What day is it? And he starts walking off and head further into the necropolis to eventually, be able to find his way into the sewers, but also to just have his IHOP dinner breakfast with the other senior dwarves of this community. Probably eyeing a few of them, seeing if they're a little early, ready for him to go ahead and put this skeleton, put this old person on my wish list as far as skeletons for my army, sort of a thing. But what's the last thing for the scene that Wrenglion's going to be doing as this strange little forest gnome and his follower characters start trudging off?
I think he would take off his bowler cap hat and take a false bottom that's in it where the map is down to where his village is, and also probably where the castle indicated where the Illithid would be, deep in the underground, and maybe have a little PTSD moment, shuddering, and put it back in his hat and go back into fishing.
And scene. So there we go. Life Spell the Necromancer and his Skelly boys getting to meet Wrenglion. What did you how'd you think that scene went?
It was everything I ever wanted. Again, I thought Duncan would be the perfect fit, but I was like, you sold him too well to be over there.
There we go. Yeah, it is fun to have a necromancer, and you don't. I guess D&D doesn't really truly fully have a class that feels like a necromancer. Though I'm sure if you went on DM's Guild or someplace, some third party has worked on selling us the ideal necromancer class, or one of these, again, as we alluded to earlier in our conversation about the healthy gaming diet. I'm sure someone and some other system out there will deliver on the fantasy of truly being a necromancer and getting your own army of skelly boys to take with you out on the road. So, yeah.
Stop on by to Bones and More, where we got skelly boys, we got skelly girls, we got all the skellies you want. Come on down.
My stock boy over-ordered on skeletons, and they have to go.
Buy one, get one arm free.
It's like those action figures you buy in the store now, where it's like, oh, here's my complete action figure, but then here's an extra arm for some other toy that I have to build, and I have to go buy the other skeletons in the set in order to get the other mystery toy. So it's like, I'm having to shell out all this gold just to get a free skeleton at this point.
Are we writing this down? Like,
I know, yeah. So So yeah, we're here in the final thoughts section of the show. So overall, how did you think your time was on the podcast?
I think it was great. I am a firm believer of the dice tell the story, so I appreciate when you gave me a chance to like re-roll or give it. But I'm a firm believer that the dice are meant to be. That I'm even anti-lucky. Like I'm not a big fan of the lucky feat because of that.
Ooh,
So
interesting.
the dice, if it's meant to be, the dice will tell it.
Yeah, we can save scum all we want on Baldur's Gate 3, but in real D&D, I mean, unless you all agree to it, but it's like, yeah, there is some finality and some truth in the moment as far as like, this is what the dice rolled, this is what they tell. Obviously, a good dungeon master will hopefully be able to read the table a little bit better, and it's like, well, let's not end the campaign so early with a TPK when really if I just say like the clutch player who can save everybody actually didn't get hit by that falling boulder. So now he has a chance to be able to pick up the cleric who's had 2 death saves and failed both of them. And so it's like the tension's up to like bring the drama back in the favor of the players.
Oh, of course. And I mean, not to get too much on a tangent, but one thing that I learned actually from my good friend Colby Ford, he would, whenever it was a serious boss fight, so just sort of imagine like save here, it's automatically saving, you got the health potions, he would put a little statue of a squirrel out and he was like, all right guys, like I'm not fudging any dice rolls, I'm not like everything that's over here. And let me tell you, those have been some of the most intense but also just such memorable moments because you know that there was one time I think he rolled like 6 natural 20s in a row. So like
Wow.
just he was out for blood that bad and that battle. And but like I said earlier, like when you're able to get through that, like even though it's a rougher fight, it's just that much more satisfying when you make it through the end. And if it does end, then to quote Theoden in Lord of the Rings, then we will make it such an end that they will sing songs for.
There we go. Always good to end on a Lord of the Rings quote for sure. So in the very final moments of final moments, I always leave the soapbox, the stage, the platform, the microphone, and all the what's a who's it's over to the guests. So certainly, any final thoughts or concluding notes or opinions or feedback, critiques, and all that. But also, we want to know where can we find you on social medias? Where can we find the Big Flying Lizard podcast? All the projects you've got coming out later in the year, since this is coming out in November, maybe even things that we have to look forward to in the new year. And then certainly any other passions or causes that we need to be made aware of, let us know.
Oh, for sure. And I just want to first say thank you so much, Kurt. This has been such a fun time. I don't get to nerd out with Dungeons and Dragons near as much as I would like to. So just getting to do this. And I have to say, this is the first time I've not been a DM for years now. So it felt good to get into the mindset of a single player rather than a array. But I really had a great time. And I'm like I mentioned before, I'm the host of Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I cover a large array of films and TV shows that either contain dragons or are about dragons. When this will be dropping, I'll probably be in the midst of covering my Game of Thrones section. We're doing our long awaited coverage of a Game of Thrones. However, with the news that broke at Comic-Con recently, I am putting into the schedule to be talking about The Legend of Vox Machina so I can time that up when the new season drops. I'm still curious if I'm going to be covering the Mighty Nine just because I did listen to the Mighty Nine in real time, and there is only a couple dragons that come up, and I just don't know if they're going to be coming up anytime soon. So maybe I'll wait a couple seasons in to see how that goes. But yeah, if you love dragons, I'm just a big dragon nerd who wants to go ahead and talk about dragons. We break down the film, we break down what goes on, and like Kurt and I did with Pete's Dragon, we do a dragon grade discussing how the dragon influenced the film, how the dragon was, and obviously just grading the film in general because The mindset that I had in college was a movie can't be a 10 out of 10 if there's no dragon in it. So take that, Oppenheimer.
And then certainly, so it's just big flying lizard across all social medias and YouTube, or what would we type into the interwebs to find you?
Yeah, for socials, I have the name Big Liz Pod, or if you just type in Big Flying Lizards, you'll be able to find it. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, all the other podcast platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, you name it, I'm there, and I will be sending out. I'm not taking dragons. Well, I take dragons seriously, but I have a fun time taking it seriously and joking around, as Kurt can attest to.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, again, Bryce, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast now. After having been a guest on yours, now you've had the pleasure of being on mine. So yeah, I can't wait to have you back on this podcast, making even more interesting NPCs.
Hey, anytime. I'm excited.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Overcast, or YouTube, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app or player of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram/Threads, Twitter/X, and Reddit by searching for Side KQ Podcast. You can also find our small Discord community as well online. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. And hey, if you'd like to hail the bard and send me a message, an email, you can do so by communicating with sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you leave a review on iTunes, 5 stars, please, to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. As mentioned in the NPC creations section of the podcast, I do in fact have a Patreon for Sidekicks and Sidequests. If you love this podcast and what we're trying to do here, I would appreciate it if you would just go to the website, patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Modest, comfortable, wealthy, and aristocratic accommodations await, and we welcome all patrons to the Levitating Platter. Seriously, your financial support allows for this passion project to continue to invest in itself through the tools that will take our production to the next level, as well as provide more content for our patrons and the community at large. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you can.
Sidekicks and Sidequests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy.
Meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards.
Portions of the materials used are property of Wizards of the Coast.
Copyright Wizards of the Coast,
LLC.
Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.